You will not believe what happened at my father's funeral. Everyone I trusted, my family, they laughed at me, mocked me, whispered behind my back, and acted like I was nothing. I sat there, calm, while they thought I had no power, no control, no future. But I had a plan, and it was all about to unfold in ways they never imagined. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to know something. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments and tell me if you have ever been betrayed by your own family. My name is Emily, and I never thought that a single day could change everything about how I saw my family. My father had been ill for months, and I knew the funeral would be hard, but I never imagined the humiliation waiting for me. The moment I entered the room, my brother and my cousins exchanged those smirks that made my stomach twist. I could hear them whispering, "She is still the same weak girl," and "She has nothing of value." My mother did not even look at me. She was busy consoling my brother as if he had been the only child who mattered. I sat in the corner, feeling the weight of everyone's judgment, but I kept my calm because I knew the truth they could not see. They did not know I had spent the last year preparing for this moment. I had quietly taken care of all my father's financial affairs while he was alive, ensuring that I had access to every account, every document, and every contract. I had done it not out of greed, but out of a deep desire to protect myself and to make sure that my father's assets were handled properly. I had studied every detail, met with the lawyers, and even kept secret conversations recorded, just in case anyone tried to challenge me. As the funeral proceeded, I watched my family act as if I were irrelevant, and every insult, every glance only fueled the fire within me. I noticed my brother leaning over to my cousin, whispering something, probably about how pathetic I was. I smiled to myself because I knew the truth. They thought I was powerless, but in reality, I held the control they would never suspect. Every dollar, every property, every investment my father had made, I had access to. They had no idea that their mockery was happening in the presence of the person who could change their lives forever. While they spoke, I remembered the nights my father had confided in me, explaining his intentions, his fears, and the importance of fairness. He trusted me when no one else did. That trust was my shield. I let them continue their whispers, their laughing, their judgment, because I wanted them to feel secure, to feel confident that I was helpless. I stayed silent, pretending to mourn like everyone else, but inside, I was preparing my reveal. Every insult was a reminder that their arrogance would be their downfall. By the end of the service, I could see them starting to relax. They believed that the day had gone as they expected. I knew that the real moment was coming, the moment where the tables would turn. And I also knew that once it happened, they would never look at me the same way again. They had humiliated me, underestimated me, and betrayed me emotionally, but they had no idea what I was about to do next. After the funeral, everyone moved to my father's house for the gathering. My brother immediately took charge, acting as if he owned everything. He was handing out instructions, deciding who would sit where, and claiming my father's possessions with a smug confidence that made my skin crawl. My cousins laughed at his jokes, and my mother seemed completely blind to the tension. I stayed quiet, observing every movement, every gesture, every expression. I let them think that I was broken, defeated, and powerless. Inside, however, I was calculating my next step, and the fire of revenge was burning hotter than ever. I had a plan, but timing was crucial. I knew that if I revealed everything too early, they would resist, and the moment would lose its impact. So I pretended to grieve, to be fragile, to be the weak sister they all loved to belittle. I nodded at their comments, allowed them to dominate conversations, and even let them joke at my expense. Every smirk, every whisper, every backhanded compliment fueled my determination. They had no idea that the person they thought they controlled was the one in complete control. During the gathering, I noticed the lawyer sitting quietly at the corner of the room. He was reviewing the documents, and I could see him occasionally glancing in my direction. He had been working with me for weeks, ensuring that everything was legally sound and that no one could dispute my authority over the estate. I had gathered proof of every asset, every investment, every bank account, and every property. I had double-checked every clause in my father's will. Everything was ready. Every dollar, every property, every contract was under my control, and the lawyer was the key to revealing it all at the perfect moment. As dinner progressed, my brother's arrogance grew. He was openly mocking my choices, laughing at my inability to manage the family's affairs, and making everyone feel like I was insignificant. I listened, silently, letting the words sink into my mind while I prepared my response. I knew that the reveal had to be shocking. It had to make them realize that their judgment, their laughter, and their mockery were meaningless. Finally, when everyone was comfortable, laughing at their own arrogance, I stood up. I walked to the lawyer, who nodded at me subtly, signaling that the moment had arrived. I could feel their eyes on me, curiosity mixed with disbelief, and I smiled inwardly. They had no idea what was coming, and once I revealed the truth, the power dynamic would shift completely. The people who had humiliated me would finally understand that the sister they mocked was the one holding all the control. The sister they underestimated was the one who could change their lives forever. I took a deep breath and turned to face my family. Everyone was still laughing, still exchanging smug glances, still convinced that I was powerless. My brother's smirk was wide, my cousins were leaning back in their chairs, and my mother was distracted by something on her phone. I cleared my throat and said, "I have something important to share." Immediately, the room went quiet. They all looked at me, curiosity replacing their arrogance. The moment I had been waiting for had arrived. I signaled the lawyer to come forward, and he stepped to my side, carrying a thick envelope. I held it carefully, like it was a fragile weapon. "This," I said, "is a copy of every financial document, contract, and bank statement my father trusted me to manage. Every asset he owned, every dollar he earned, every property he purchased legally belongs under my authority." Their faces froze. My brother's smirk disappeared, replaced by disbelief. My cousin's chatter stopped completely, and even my mother lifted her eyes slowly, as if she could not process what I had just said. The lawyer opened the envelope and began presenting the documents. He explained that my father had given me full control over his estate months ago. Every investment, every bank account, every business property was under my name. No one could challenge it. I watched the shock spread across their faces. My brother's hands trembled as he tried to speak, but no words came. My cousins whispered nervously, realizing that the sister they had mocked, humiliated, and underestimated had outsmarted them entirely. My mother's expression was a mixture of shock and regret. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "You all laughed at me. You thought I was insignificant. You treated me like I had no value, no power, and no place in this family. But my father trusted me when no one else would. He believed in me, and I honored that trust." Every eye in the room was fixed on me. I could feel their disbelief, their fear, their realization that the dynamics had completely changed. I had gone from the powerless sibling to the one in absolute control, and they knew it. Then I added, "From this day forward, every decision regarding my father's estate will go through me. Every dollar, every property, every contract will be managed with care and integrity, and any attempts to challenge this authority will fail." Silence filled the room. No one dared speak. I had finally shown them that the person they had mocked was the one who held all the power. I could feel the shift, the tension, the realization that their arrogance had blinded them. I had transformed from the quiet, underestimated daughter into the woman in complete control. The humiliation they had imposed on me was nothing compared to the power I now held. After I revealed the truth, the room stayed silent longer than I expected. My brother's face had turned pale, and his usual arrogance had vanished completely. He looked around at my cousins and then back at me, as if searching for some explanation, some way to deny the reality he could not escape. My mother, who had ignored me all my life, stared at the documents in disbelief, her hands trembling slightly. I realized in that moment how deeply they had underestimated me, how their confidence in my supposed weakness had blinded them to the truth. My brother finally tried to speak, but his voice was low, almost defeated. "Emily, I did not know," he started. I shook my head, holding up a finger to stop him. "Do not speak," I said firmly. "This is not about ignorance. This is about trust, respect, and accountability. My father trusted me with everything because he knew I could handle it. He believed in me when none of you did, and now it is my responsibility to honor that trust." My words hung in the air, powerful and unyielding. My cousins, who had been quietly observing, were visibly shaken. They realized that every time they had whispered behind my back, laughed at my choices, or dismissed me as irrelevant, they had underestimated someone who was far stronger and far smarter than they could imagine. I watched their expressions change from smugness to fear, and then slowly, to respect, though begrudgingly. They knew that the power dynamic had shifted permanently. I could feel the weight of control settle on my shoulders, but it was not a weight I resented. It was a responsibility I embraced fully. Even my mother, who had always favored my brother, seemed to understand. Her eyes met mine for a brief moment, and I saw a flicker of regret, a recognition that her judgment had been flawed. I did not gloat. I did not mock. I simply maintained my composure, letting the truth speak for itself. I allowed them to see that the sister they had humiliated, mocked, and overlooked was now in absolute control. Every document, every account, every decision rested with me, and they could do nothing to challenge it. By the end of the evening, the atmosphere had changed completely. My brother no longer made jokes at my expense. My cousins were cautious, careful with their words, aware that their sister was no longer powerless. My mother, though still processing, approached me quietly and said, "Your father would be proud of you." Her voice held sincerity, and in that moment I felt a mix of vindication and closure. I had proven my strength, reclaimed my dignity, and honored my father's trust. I realized that control was not about revenge. It was about rightful responsibility and standing firm in the face of betrayal. The day ended with a new understanding in the room. They could not undo what I had revealed, and I had no desire to punish them unnecessarily. I had gained far more than financial control. I had gained the respect and recognition I deserved, and the family who had once humiliated me now understood, perhaps for the first time, the depth of my strength. I walked away from that evening feeling empowered, validated, and ready for the life I was meant to lead, a life where no one could ever diminish me again.